She went missing on a trip for years. Now she has come back with a baby and believes I will take her back. The paternity test changed all things. I need to get this off my chest because I still can't accept this is truly happening. I'm 32. I run a restaurant in Portland, and I thought I had my life sorted out until 3 days ago when my ex-wife showed up at my home with a toddler. Let me explain from the start, because this story is completely insane. 6 years ago, I met Stephanie at a friend's wedding in Seattle. She was a bridesmaid, I was a groomsman, and we liked each other immediately. She was impulsive and adventurous and everything I wasn't, which I loved at the time. We dated for 8 months and then got married very fast, but I was 26 and foolishly in love. The first year was fine, or at least I thought it was. She worked as a yoga instructor and talked all the time about wellness and finding her true purpose. I didn't think much of it because everyone in Portland says like that. But then she started getting uneasy. She'd return home from the studio and say that she felt stuck, that she needed to see more of the world, that she was losing her youth. I proposed we take a vacation to Hawaii or maybe Costa Rica. She said that wasn't sufficient. About 2 years into our marriage, she mentioned the idea of a sabbatical. She wanted to go to Southeast Asia for many months to study meditation and yoga at a retreat in Bali. I told her that sounded great, but maybe we could go together, take a few weeks off. She said no, she needed to do this by herself, that I wouldn't understand. That was painful, but I tried to be supportive. I asked how long she'd be gone, and she said approximately 3 months, maybe longer. I wasn't happy, but I thought if this would make her happy and help her figure things out, I could handle it. We talked about it for weeks, and I kept sharing my concerns. I told her that leaving for that long would hurt our marriage. She promised me it wouldn't, that this would actually make us stronger because she'd come back as her best self. I wanted to believe her. She left in February, about 2 years ago. The first month, she texted me every few days, gave me photos of temples and beaches. The second month, the messages became less. She said the retreat had a rule about phone usage, and she was really focusing on the practice. I was lonely, but I told myself this was short-term. By month 3, I was texting her more than she was texting me. Her responses got shorter and less frequent. I'm good, really busy with training, miss you too, talk soon, that sort of thing. Month 4 arrived, and I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks in a row. I was starting to be scared. I called her mom, who lived in Phoenix, and she said she hadn't heard from Stephanie either, but that was typical for her. She'd done this sort of thing before I found out. That was new to me. Then in late June, almost 5 months after she left, I got an email. Not a text, not a call, an email. It was from a lawyer's office in California. Divorce papers. I sat at my desk in the restaurant office looking at my laptop screen for probably 20 minutes. There was a short note from Stephanie attached. I'm sorry to do this, but I've understood I'm not ready to be married. I need to continue my journey. Please sign the papers. I'll take care of everything else. The exclamation point hurt me deeply, like this was a casual breakup and not the end of our marriage. I tried calling her immediately, but her phone was not working. I tried Facebook and Instagram, but she blocked me on all platforms. I was shattered. I called out of work for a week and almost never left my apartment. My friends came over and tried to help, but what could they tell me? My wife had actually abandoned me on another continent and sent divorce papers through a lawyer. I signed them after about a month because what else was I going to do? Fight for someone who obviously didn't want to be married to me? The divorce was completed by September, about 7 months after she left. She never requested anything, didn't want alimony, didn't want to split our small savings. She just wanted out. I used the next year in therapy trying to deal with what happened. My therapist said Stephanie probably had some commitment issues and possibly some mental health things she never worked on. That made sense, but it didn't make it hurt less. After some time, I started dating again. Nothing serious for a long time, just trying to remember how to be a person. Then, about 8 months ago, I met Maggie at a coffee shop downtown. She's a graphic designer, funny, stable, emotionally available. We took things slow, and it's been quite good. I was finally feeling like myself again. I even got a better job as general manager at the restaurant. Life was getting better. To hear the full story and discover the shocking truth behind the paternity test, make sure you watch this video all the way to the end. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Reddit Stories Rewind for more real-life stories. Then, 3 days ago, in early October, I got home from a late shift around 11 at night, and there was someone resting on the steps outside my apartment building.
I didn't know her at first because her hair was changed and she looked tired and older. But then she stood up and I saw her face, Stephanie, and she was holding a toddler on her hip. My brain completely stopped working. I just stood there on the sidewalk with my work bag dangling off my shoulder. She walked up to me and said, "Hi, Cole," like we'd just seen each other last week. The kid was awake, maybe 18 months old, wearing little pajamas with dinosaurs on them. I finally said, "What are you doing here?" She moved the kid to her other hip and said, "I know this is a surprise, but we need to talk. Can we go inside?" I looked at her and at the toddler, and I felt like I was in a bad dream. The kid had dark curly hair and was looking at me with these big brown eyes. I said, "Whose kid is that?" She took a deep breath and said, "Ours. This is our daughter. Her name is Lucy." And that's when my entire world turned upside down again. I stood there trying to understand what she just said. Our daughter? I looked at the kid again, and my mind was going quickly through the timeline. Stephanie left in February 2 years ago. If this kid was 18 months old, that meant she was born around May last year, which meant Stephanie would have gotten pregnant right before she left, or maybe in the first few weeks of her trip. My hands started to shake. I unlocked the building door and we went upstairs to my apartment without saying anything else. Lucy was getting cranky and Stephanie was bouncing her and making those shushing sounds. Once we got inside, I turned on the lights and just stood in the center of my living room. Stephanie sat down on my couch like she'd been there 100 times before, even though she'd never seen this apartment. I moved here 6 months after the divorce. I finally found my voice and asked where she'd been for 2 years. She said she remained in Bali for 8 months and then traveled around Thailand and Vietnam. She said she found herself and became so much as a person. I asked when she found out she was pregnant. She got quiet and looked down at Lucy, who was pulling at her hair. She said she knew she was pregnant in April, about 2 months after she left. She said she was scared and confused and didn't know what to do. I asked why she didn't tell me. She said she wasn't sure the baby was mine. That hit me like a punch. I asked what she meant by that. She said she'd met someone at the retreat in Bali, another American guy named Harry. She said it only happened a few times and it was a mistake, and she ended things with him. But by then, she'd already missed her period. I sat down in the chair across from her because my legs felt like they were going to fail. I asked if she was really telling me she cheated on me while she was on her spiritual journey to find herself. She started crying and said it wasn't like that our marriage was already over, that she was lost, and Harry understood her in ways I never did. I told her that was wrong, and she knew it. She dried her eyes and said she took a paternity test when Lucy was born. She said Lucy was mine, not Harry's. I asked why I should believe anything she said at this point. She said she had the test results and could show me. I told her to show me right now. She took out her phone and started looking through photos. She found a document and gave me the phone. It was a paternity test from some lab in Thailand. I looked at it and it had Harry's name and it said he was excluded as the father with 0% probability. But that didn't prove Lucy was mine. It just proved she wasn't Harry's. I handed her phone back and told her I wanted my own paternity test done here in the US with a real lab. She said fine because she expected that. I asked why she waited 18 months to tell me I had a daughter. She said after Lucy was born, she was swamped and scared. She said she was living in Chiang Mai with some other yoga teachers and almost not making enough money. She said she thought about contacting me, but she was ashamed of how she'd left things. She said she finally came back to the US 3 months ago and stayed with her sister in Sacramento. I asked where she was here now. She said her sister made her leave 2 weeks ago because her husband didn't want them there anymore. She said she had no other place to go and Lucy should know her father. I looked at this kid, who was now falling asleep on Stephanie's shoulder. She had my ex-wife's nose, but I couldn't see myself in her at all. I told Stephanie she couldn't stay here. She started crying again and said she wasn't asking to live here. She just needed help. She said she had about $300 left and no job and no home. I told her that wasn't my issue. That sounded harsh even as I said it, but I was so angry. She said, "Please, Cole, I know I failed, but Lucy is innocent in all this. She's your daughter." I told her we'd do the paternity test and then we'd sort things out. She asked where she was meant to sleep tonight. I told her I'd pay for a motel room for 1 night, and tomorrow we'd get the test done. She looked happy and thanked me. I reserved her a room at a Motel 6 about 10 minutes away on my phone and drove them there. Stephanie held Lucy in her lap in the back seat, and the kid fell asleep against her chest. When I dropped them off, Stephanie took my hand and said she never stopped loving me. I moved my hand away and left. The twists in this story are far from over. To find out what the paternity test reveals and the difficult choices that follow, you must watch this video until the very end. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Reddit Stories Rewind for more real-life stories. I got back to my apartment around 1 in the morning and couldn't sleep. I kept going over the timeline through my head. If Stephanie got pregnant right before she left or in those first few weeks, the timing could work, but she'd also admitted to sleeping with someone else. The next morning, I called out of work and took Stephanie and Lucy to a lab that did fast paternity testing. It cost $400. They rubbed my cheek and Lucy's cheek and said results would be emailed by the next afternoon if I paid for express processing. Stephanie asked if we could get lunch. I said no. She asked if I wanted to spend time with Lucy.
I told her I wasn't ready for that. I dropped them back at the motel and went home. At 4:30, my phone rang. It was Maggie. I'd completely forgotten that we had plans to have dinner at her place that night. She asked if I was still coming, and I realized I hadn't told her any of this. I said I needed to talk to her about something. She could tell from my voice something was wrong. I drove to her apartment and told her the whole story. She sat on her couch, not saying anything for a long time. Then she asked if I thought the kid was really mine. I said I didn't know. She asked what I was going to do if she was. I said I had no idea. She said this was a lot to take in. I agreed. She said she needed some time to think about what this meant for us. That scared me, but I understood. The next day, around 2 in the afternoon, I got an email from the lab. I opened it on my phone at the restaurant during a quiet period. The results said I was not the father. 0% probability. Lucy wasn't mine. I felt this strange mix of relief and anger. Relief that I wasn't connected to Stephanie forever, but anger that she'd put me through this whole thing. I called Stephanie immediately. She answered on the first ring. I said the test came back. I'm not the father. There was silence on the other end. Then she started crying and said that couldn't be right, that the test in Thailand said Harry wasn't the father either. I told her she needed to figure out who Lucy's real father was because it wasn't me. She said, "Cole, please, there was no one else. It has to be you or Harry." I told her obviously there was someone else she forgot about or wasn't being honest about. She kept crying and saying this didn't make sense. I said I'd pay for one more night at the motel, but after that she was on her own. She pleaded with me not to abandon them. I said she abandoned me 2 years ago and hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. I paid for one more night at the motel like I promised and figured Stephanie would reach out to her mom or friends or figure something out. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls from her and about 20 text messages. Most of them were her begging me to change my mind and saying she had nowhere to go. A few of them were angry, calling me heartless and saying I was abandoning my duty. I didn't respond to any of them. I went to work and tried to pay attention to the lunch shift, but my head wasn't in it. Around 2 in the afternoon, my assistant manager came to the office and told me someone in the dining room was asking for me. I walked out and saw Stephanie sitting at a table near the window with Lucy in a high chair. My stomach dropped. She waved at me like this was completely normal. I walked over and kept my voice low, asking what she was doing here. She acted like showing up at my workplace was no big deal since I wasn't answering my phone. I told her she couldn't just surprise me at work. A few customers were staring, and Lucy was making a mess with crackers. I told Stephanie to wait outside and took a quick break. In the parking lot, she immediately started talking about the paternity test. She claimed something must have gone wrong. Maybe the lab made a mistake or mixed up samples. I told her that wasn't how it worked, and she needed to accept the truth. She got emotional and explained that her mom wouldn't return her calls, her sister wouldn't take her back, and emergency housing would take weeks. She tried calling shelters, but they were all full. Then came the guilt trip about Lucy possibly being homeless. That got to me, but I stayed firm.
I told her there were resources for single mothers and I'd help her find them, but nothing more. Why are you being so cruel? That's when I lost it. I reminded her that she didn't get to play victim here. She was the one who left, who cheated, who sent divorce papers through a lawyer without even calling. She made her choices and now had to live with them. She started crying, and Lucy picked up on it and started crying too. Stephanie insisted she'd changed and wasn't that person anymore. I told her people don't change that much. Then she said the shocking thing, that she still loved me, and if I gave her a chance, we could be a family. I stared at her in disbelief and asked if she seriously thought I'd take her back after everything. She talked about second chances and being willing to work for it. I told her some mistakes were too big to come back from. The final confrontation and the ultimate resolution are the most powerful parts of this story. To see how it all ends and the lesson learned, watch the video until the final moment. She changed her approach and brought up Maggie, asking if I loved her. I told her that was none of her business. So you can move on, but I can't return? I made it clear this was never her home and walked back inside, leaving her in the parking lot with Lucy. Back in the office, I was shaking. The rest of the week was a horrible dream. She showed up at the restaurant twice more. She waited outside my apartment building one night. Long emails kept arriving about how sorry she was and what she'd do to make things right. I stopped reading after the first one. Maggie came over Friday night and we had a deep talk. She could see this was hurting me deeply, but she needed to know I was really done with Stephanie. I promised her I was. She believed me, but made it clear I needed to handle this completely because the constant drama was too much. She was right. The next day, I called Stephanie and told her to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. I got there first with my black coffee. She showed up 20 minutes late with Lucy looking completely exhausted. Dark circles, messy hair, same clothes from 3 days earlier. We sat down and I told her I was going to say this once and didn't want to hear from her again. I explained that what she did was unpardonable. Not just the leaving, but the way she did it. It showed she never cared or honored me. Coming back now wasn't love, it was hopelessness. She tried to speak, but I kept going. I'd moved on. I was happy, and she needed to accept that. I'd help her find help, but that was it. She asked if any part of me still had any love for her. I looked at her and felt nothing except maybe sadness for her. I told her no. She nodded slowly and tears came, but she didn't make a fuss. I pulled out a printed list of emergency housing programs, food banks, and social services in Portland. I also wrote her a check for $500. I pushed everything across the table and told her this was the last money she'd get from me. She picked up the check and thanked me quietly. There was a moment where she asked if she could hug me. I said no. She collected Lucy and left without looking back. I sat there finishing my coffee and feeling like a heavy load had lifted. When I got home, I blocked her number and email. 2 weeks passed without contact. Then her mom, Susan, called one afternoon. I almost didn't answer, but interest won. She told me Stephanie had reached out and explained everything. Susan sent her money for a bus ticket, and Stephanie was moving to San Diego to stay with Susan's niece. Susan said sorry for how things turned out, and mentioned she always liked me. I thanked her and said I hope Stephanie figured things out. That was 3 months ago now. Maggie and I are doing great. We moved in together last month and started talking about getting engaged next year. I still think about that whole situation sometimes, but mostly I'm just thankful it's over. I avoided a massive bullet. The lesson I learned is that sometimes people show you exactly who they are, and you just have to believe them the first time. Stephanie showed me she was selfish and rash and willing to destroy her life on a whim. I'm glad I didn't let her destroy mine again. If anyone out there is dealing with an ex trying to come back after they burned everything down, my advice is simple. Don't let them. Close the door and move forward. You are worthy of better than someone who only wants you when they have nowhere else to go. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments. Give us a like and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories. This story shows why it's crucial to set firm boundaries and protect your peace. If you found this journey impactful, watch the full video for the complete emotional weight of this real-life lesson. Your support helps us share more stories, so please subscribe, like, and share Reddit Stories Rewind with others.